Alright, so in this video, we will now look at the basic structure of an HTML document. So let's just go straight to our VS Code and be able to explain the HTML structure. Okay, so in one of the previous lessons, we created a folder called HTML, and inside that folder we created a file called index.html. So you notice that with the different files that we'll be creating, there's always a different extension depending on the type of file that we want to create. So if we are creating an HTML file, the extension should always be .html. If we are creating a CSS file, the extension, as you are going to see, will always contain the .css, right? So in our case, it's .html. Then the name of the file is the one that comes first, which is in our case index. And I mentioned that we are giving it the name index because that's the naming convention for the HTML file, which is an entry point for our website. So in this case, the index.html is the landing page, it's the home page for our website. Okay, so I'll run you through this code and explain the tags. So one important thing that you need to understand about HTML is that HTML is a hypertext markup language. So you come across different languages in programming or in the tech space. With programming languages, they are used differently from markup languages. So with programming languages, that's where you find things like logic, algorithms, and all that stuff, variables, how to store your data and all that, which we are going to look at when we start learning JavaScript. But as you are looking at different markup languages, one of the markup languages that you come across is HTML. The other one is called XML, right? But we are not looking at XML, we'll be looking at HTML as our markup language. Now, HTML is the building block of all websites. It's the skeleton, the structure that holds the whole website. So I always give this example. With websites, we have different components. The main basic components are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And when you compare it with a human being, you can say HTML is the skeleton that holds the different organs of a human being. So you have your lungs, you have your liver, you have your heart, you've got your tissues, you've just got these different organs, and you've got your skin, you've got your veins. All these things are being held by your bones, which is a structure. If you didn't have bones, you don't have a proper framework, a structure that would hold you in position, right? And so it's the same with web development. When you are designing your website, the foundation upon which you build everything, where you add your CSS and all that, that's the HTML that we are talking about. So HTML just builds the framework. Then now when you start using things like CSS, that's where you start adding your styles. When you start adding your JavaScript, that's where you add your interaction, your activity on the website. That's why you now add life to your website. Okay, so in the comparison of a human being, you can say the CSS is now things like the tissues, the things that are covering your body, making up your structure. Then the JavaScript is now what gives you life, what enables you to walk, to talk, to raise your hand, to kick a ball and all those things, right? So in this lesson, we will look at HTML being the foundation, the structure upon which everything is built. So HTML has what we call tags, okay? So you come across HTML tags. So all these things that you are seeing with these less than and greater than symbols are what we call HTML tags. And there are different HTML tags that you will come across. Okay, so since in this lesson we are looking at the structure of the basic structure of an HTML document, this is the basic structure, and it is sometimes referred to as the boilerplate. Okay, so the first tag that you see here on top called doctype HTML. This tag specifies the type of document that we are dealing with. So doctype is shortcut for document type, which is HTML. Then what we do is that we enclose everything inside that HTML so that we can tell the browser the type of document and how we want the browser to interpret this document for the user to be able to see and interact with it. Okay. Then the next one is the head. Okay. So I want you to notice something. You notice that with the head tag, it has also tags inside it. Okay, so there's a head here and there's a head here. So even with the body, it's the same. There's the body here and the body here. So with HTML, we have tags that we call open and closing tag. Then we have tags that are called self-closing tags. Okay, so here, one of the self-closing tag is the meta tag. So here, these meta tags just add metadata about the website. Okay, when we start looking at especially responsive web design, we'll look at some of these meta tags. But right now, what you need to understand is that a meta tag is one example that we can give of a self-closing tag. We'll look at other examples like the image tag. Okay, yeah. Then with the head tag, it has an open tag and a closing tag. Now, the only difference is the forward slash. So here you notice that with the closing tag, you always have a forward slash. Okay, so with time, you get to now remember to say, okay, this tag has an open and closing, this one doesn't have and all that. With practice, you get to understand that. Okay, so with the head tag, you have an open and a closing tag. Then with the body, it's the same. You have an open and a closing tag. So everything that the user sees on your website goes inside the body tag, okay, except the title that goes on top of a page. Okay, so if you look at this page, you have a title there on top, right? Then when you look at even this one for Google, when you go to this one, you have a title there, syllabus Google Drive. So that title is what goes in this tag, okay, is what goes in this tag, right? So this is the basic structure of a website. So there are other tags that go inside the head tag, but what you need to understand is that the tags that go inside the body are the ones that the user is able to see, but the ones that go inside the head kind of add more information and details to the website. Okay. So let's edit our page. So we'll say document, we'll name it HTML lessons. Okay, HTML lessons. So now inside the body, there are obviously different tags that you can use. For now, I'll give you an example of what we call a header tag, okay, which is written as H1. Okay, so here let's add a heading called, we just call it heading on HTML. Okay, and we'll add another tag. There's a tag for adding a paragraph. Okay, so say lorem ipsum. This one is just a shortcut for generating dummy text that we want to use on our website. Okay, so we have that. We can now just cut it down so that we're able to see properly like that. Okay, so there is actually an extension that you can use to beautify, to just properly structure this content. Okay, so among the extensions that I gave you that you can install in here is an extension called Beautifier, and there's another one called Prettier that helps you structure this content properly. So with me, these are the extensions. So you can use Beautifier or Prettier or HTML language features. So if I click that, you see that there's been some spaces that has been created here. Or if I want, I would have used Beautifier, okay, which does the same thing. Or if you want, you can just use Prettier, which arranges the code like that. So it's up to you, whichever one you use. Okay, so I'll save the work. Then now, the question that you might have, for example, is now how do you view this page? How do you see how the changes look like? Okay, so what you do to make the changes is, to view the changes is you have to copy the path for this for your work. Okay, so you can copy the path. Okay, so there should be an option here for copying a path, which is here. So copy path. So when we say copy path, so there are two. There is relative path and there is copy path. When you copy the relative path, it only shows you from the current directory to the file where you are. Okay, so let's copy relative directory. You understand what I mean? So if I paste it there like that, you've seen, it just shows you the current directory, HTML folder, and the file itself. So when we paste this, the browser won't understand where inside our machine this file is seated. Okay, so we don't use the relative path. So what you do is you right click, then you copy the path alone. So if I paste it here, you will notice that it tells me exactly where that file is on my machine. Okay, so when I paste this in the browser and run the file, this is how the browser now shows me that file, interprets that file. This is the heading we added, and this is the paragraph that we added. All right, so that's how you view your changes. So if I go back and make any change, so here if I remove the on and save, and I go back and refresh the page, you will notice that it has now changed, and that's how you edit and view your changes. Okay, so this is the basic structure of an HTML element. So just remember, it is sometimes referred to as the boilerplate without this content, like this. Okay, so go now to the next lesson.